Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
I like my donuts so fat their holes are closed.
Did you hear that, John?
I did not hear that.
Craig Ferguson, one of his quotes was, "I like my donuts so fat their holes are closed." Think about that for a minute. Okay, where was I? By the way, I should put in the plug the fact that we don't do this enough, that we do this show live. Every day we do the show live, and it is on the air live between 7 and 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. We're not in the daylight savings. Or no, we're in daylight savings time right now. That's right. We're going back to Standard Time. So we're in 7 to 8 o'clock. A lot of people listen to this on our podcast platform. A lot of people listen to this on the YouTube platform. But you can actually stream the show live. You can listen to it off air on Egbert 104.5 every single morning, except when John's on vacation. Were you on vacation last week, or should I even be nosy enough to ask what you were doing last week?
Yeah, you can ask for sure. I won't talk about it, but yeah, I was not available between 7 and 8 those 3 days. After the election, there's a couple days where segment A, where A block I'm going to do from the car, but occasionally there's real life stuff that comes up, and it's rare, but sometimes it happens, Brett.
Okay. You're the stock market financial guru kind of guy, correct? You do a lot of that stuff.
I wouldn't call myself a guru. I pay very close attention to the markets, yeah.
Okay. I heard an ad last night for Robinhood. You know what Robinhood is, the app which
for sure.
did all the meme stocks and stuff like that. They now have a thing called the Robinhood Presidential Derivatives. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of the derivatives. I'm familiar with the fact that you can bet and you can bet on the outcome of the election, but I didn't know that Robinhood had a product for it. No.
Robinhood, and explain. You're the expert on this. Explain what a financial derivative is.
But they're usually based on another financial a security or commodity price. So if you wanted to take a derivative based on the price of corn or soybeans, you could trade something that is dependent on that core price of whatever that commodity or security like a stock is.
It wasn't like a bet. You bought shares. And then they said that it paid off $1 a share on January 1st. And essentially, who's going to win the presidential election. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is because obviously, we have the thing called prop bets, which is, especially during the Super Bowl, they talk about, who's gonna score the first touchdown. There's all the different prop bets, and there's prop bets going on all the time right now. Isn't that a thing with all sorts of different things?
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the biggest growth aspects of if you look at these sports betting apps like, FanDuel or DraftKings. Yeah, the prop bets are in-game bets that you can place. Right.
And essentially the new one is the new one that I hear advertised on Armstrong and Getty, a bunch of the other talk radio shows, is essentially you're betting on what is it? I think it's called Prize Picks. You familiar with this one?
No, I'm not.
And essentially what you're doing is you're betting on different things that are going to happen. And they talk about the fact, it almost sounds like, a form of fantasy sports, because they're talking about one of the things is, and if your player gets knocked out in the first half, your bet's canceled and you get your money refunded. So in other words, the idea being is that if you bet on somebody, I hear people complain about all this time with fantasy sports. Well, my fantasy sports went bad because my quarterback got knocked out in the first quarter, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, I've talked about this before. Do you think that college sports, and especially football, basketball, is just irrevocably tainted with all this NIL stuff? My own personal opinion, it's gotten to the point where it's just gotten out of control, because there's articles you read about everybody's in the transfer portal, and there's a story that was yesterday in the Post-Dispatch about what's Mizzou going to do next year, who are they going to get out of the transfer portal, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and in fact, I saw that headline this morning in the Post-Dispatch, and I think the headline was something to the effect of a record number of star quarterbacks will be in the transfer portal. Who should Mizzou pick? So essentially give up on Mizzou's quarterbacks that they have now and get a transfer. I don't know, Brad. I mean, I think these sports evolve, and there was a time when, that Curt Flood challenged baseball's free agency system, and that was considered heresy back in the late 60s. But I think it's, I don't have a problem with college athletes taking advantage of licensing and being able to make some money off of it. I do think that the nature of draft picks, or recruits changing, just like they would change their socks or their shoes, I think is ridiculous. But I think that's more of a personal value than it is something about the sports. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think, let's be honest, the whole thing with most of the athletes, I mean, like, especially in the NBA has a rule that they can't take anybody right out of high school, that you have to play at least 1 year in the colleges. So what happens, all these guys, they get recruited by the colleges, they make a big impact as a freshman, and then they're gone. They're in right. the NBA draft, and they're gone. I just think it's to the point where you look at the situation, you look at the highest paid professor at Mizzou, and the highest paid professor at Mizzou makes a fraction of what the football coach does. You know what I mean? And to me, it's to the point where I get it. There's money that comes in, but see, once again, this is where Brad comes up with his sexual diversity outlook on life. If women ran the universities, if women were all the board of directors and the chancellor and the president of the various, do you think this would happen? I mean, because of the fact that women are going, sports.
Yeah, I think those women would want the money to go shopping.
No, that's not what I meant, John. It's a guy thing. It's a guy thing. It's to the point. Oh, gotta. And it's like to the point where, like, if you listen to ESPN 101, okay. Once again, I love it that people have passion for things, but to me, I don't understand that whole sports, to the point where, I mean, when I was teaching up at Flow Valley a long time ago, okay, I had a 20-year-old kid in my class. And keep in mind, this goes way back to the point where the football Cardinals were still in town. So you had the football Cardinals, and you had the Blues, and you had the Cardinals. This kid, 20, 21-year-old student, had season tickets to all three sports. Now, once again, even back in the day, that's not cheap,
Yeah, I mean, but his parents probably paid for it, right?
I don't think so. I think if I remember, I think he talked about the fact that he worked, and once again, I got to hand him, he had a couple jobs, because I was teaching nights at the time, so he was doing something during the day. I think he had a full-time gig he was doing during the day, and he was going to school at night, partly because of the fact that he was making enough money during the day where he could buy all these sports, teams and things like that. And most of the games, obviously, if he's working like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday gig, he's always going to be able to go watch the football games because they're out at night, and are on Sundays, if it's a Monday night or a Thursday night back. I don't know if they had Thursday night games back then, but Cardinals games for the most part are at night, or on the weekends they're during the day, but he was working Monday through Friday. Same thing with Blues. Blues rarely play like a day game. They're almost always in the evenings.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody has the income, so first of all, I agree I mean, you and I are in the same boat in this, and so I watch World Series headline. I'll watch the highlights in a 5-minute summary, or if there's something interesting, I'll watch it on YouTube. But I'm not going to, having grown up a baseball fan and being a baseball fan, I'm not going to sit on my duff for 2 hours and watch a baseball game. Like, I'm not going to prioritize that in my life. But for some people, Brad, like, that's their escape. If they're beaten up at work all day and they hate their boss and they hate their life and they want to get away from their kids, and their woman runs their house, then they're subjugated to something they call a man cave, which is what they use to escape the family that they hate. And then they'll sit down and they'll watch sports, and they'll drink to excess, or they'll take their marijuana and whatever it takes to escape, Brad.
And by the way, I tried to quote this to somebody yesterday. You had an article, and I looked on your John Combest from yesterday and from Sunday. I couldn't find it. You had the article that you talked about how very few of the marijuana places are actually profitable. Where?
Yeah, correct. Yep. That was from Forbes. So that was a piece that was run in the Post-Dispatch, I believe, on Sunday. And then the original research was from Forbes. Yep.
Did you have that on your site, or did I just miss it? I tried to find it.
Yeah, I had it up, but it was inside the Post-Dispatch story.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Okay, and the numbers were that I think you said it was only like what 35 or 40% of the marijuana dispensaries are profitable. Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah, fewer than that. And the other thing, the asterisk I would add real quick too, before you get to your other point, Brad, about that, is that the asterisk I would add is that this was all self-reported, and as we know from most business surveys, business owners are generally going to exaggerate how well they are doing. So I would knock that down by a percentage or two and just suggest that most of those operators are indeed losing money. But go ahead. I interrupted what you were going to say.
Well, but let's take it the other way. If it's a cash business, they might be underreporting their revenue.
Yeah, for the sake of the IRS, here are the numbers, Brad. The 27% of cannabis businesses are profitable. And the same poll, 40% said they broke even, and 32% said they were not profitable.
And this is
so you look at it, and this was from Forbes reporting in July.
But this is in the state of Missouri, the entire country.
This is the entire country. This is the U.S., yeah.
And the article that you referenced is, and it's coming back to me, there was one of the marijuana operations in St. Louis was in debt, what, $22 million or something like that?
$22 million, you're right. They have a store at Sunrise Beach at Lake of the Ozarks, yep.
Okay. For a minute, let's talk about this again. You've never gotten. I know you sent the notification to Jack Cardetti. You've never heard back from him, then, correct?
Yeah. Did you get my text last night about the Amendment 2, folks?
No, I did not.
Okay. So they're happy to come on. We could talk about this off the air. They're happy to come on, and I gave you a few suggested dates and times at which they would like to come on.
Okay, and these are the Jack Cardetti people, correct?
Correct. Yep, you're absolutely right.
Okay,
yeah,
because
it's not Jack, but it's someone else with the campaign.
But you sent that last week, and then I never got any response, and you didn't until what, yesterday then?
Yeah, I reached out to somebody else. We never heard back from Jack Cardetti.
Okay, and they're going to come out and tell you why the Amendment 2 thing is such a great thing.
We can make that work off air, and then they can come on the air this week.
Okay, cool. So we'll talk about that, and we'll ask the pointed question: is there really going to be hundreds of millions of dollars going toward education, or is that just all smoke and mirrors?
Or no money? And to the point of that, and Scott Fawn talked about this with Pete Mundo. They both said, when you confuse the argument about if you're a pro sports betting guy and you're like, well, here's how the money's going to benefit education. If people really don't believe it, aren't you better off just saying, look, other states allow you to bet on sports. Let's have you bet on sports. The state will get the money and do something with it. Like, I think that's a more rational argument than talking about than splitting hairs about where the money's going to go for education.
Well, one of the things that always bothers me is if you listen to the ad, the lady's she's got a beautiful voice. She comes on, she says, 7 of the of our neighboring states have approved sports betting. And whenever anybody says, "Well, look at Europe, look how good it is in Europe," my response is,
then move to Europe.
Yes, exactly.
And move to Tennessee if you like it so
or
much.
Move to Illinois. I mean, and the crazy thing about it is that if you want a sports bet, this is so weird. And I have friends of mine that do this. You just jump in your car, you drive across one of the many bridges into Illinois. North County, the 270 bridge, or any bridges downtown, or the JB Bridge to the south. You drive into Illinois. It geolocates you in Illinois, and you can bet your living butt off, right? And then you make
you're exactly right.
And then you make your bet. You drive back across the river, and you're all good to go. So it's like,
hey, you know what we're going to hear about next year, Brent? I'm going to give you a little preview of 2025 that I've heard zero, and I mean 0.0.
I got to find that.
People talking about next year, the legislature, regardless of what happens with sports betting, somebody in the legislature will be clever enough to put forth a bill that bans Bovada. You know what Bovada is?
I have no idea what that is. No, what is that?
Bovada is an illegal, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Bovada is a sports book, a sports betting app of questionable legality that's based offshore. So, Brad, if you happen to dive into what experts think is going to happen on the Mizzou game this Saturday, you're probably going to get a pop-up from Bovada. And the joy of Bovada is you set up an offshore account and you place your bet, you win money, you lose money. IRS doesn't know about it. State of Missouri doesn't know about it. You just collect your winnings. You could consider it kind of a gray market type betting app. Now, across the country, various state legislatures have seen this and said, whoa. If you're going to bet we want a piece of that. We got to ban Bovada from here in Tennessee or Michigan or Wisconsin. Missouri, as far as I know, there has been no legislation by any state legislator to ban Bovada. Now, I should give credit to Sean Jenkins from Hedgeye. I listen to Hedgeye. I listen to like an hour and a half of calls from Hedgeye every day. And Jenkins has been on top of it because he follows the legislation. And, if you're FanDuel or your DraftKings, you say, why are these states giving us a hard time? And then the government allows people to bet on Bovada and nobody gets that tax money. So, Brad, 2025, we will have a clever state legislator introduce some kind of legislation about Bovada.
Okay, spell that for me. Is it Bovada? Bovada. Now, I just looked it up, Brad. They claim they are a USA-based gambling and sports betting website. So I think there are folks that would question that statement. So I'm not a sports betting guy, but if I downloaded that app, I assume they have an app, I can be making bets right now?
Yeah, absolutely. You could bet. As I understand it now, again, I haven't bet on sports since I was at Hazelwood East and set up an illegal sports book there. But as I understand it, you just download Bovada, you connect your account. And I should mention, too, I won't narc anybody out, but I know some folks who have a Bovada account who talk about it.
And if they win, they get paid out. There isn't some guy that shows up their door and says, hey, that bet you made when you won?
Yeah,
we're not paying.
So
tough luck, buddy.
I just went to their website. Now, this should tell you something, Brad. You're a domain expert. The domain is bovada.lv. I wonder what LV is.
You want me to look up it real quick? I got
you can.
I got a site, .lv, LV domain. Let me see. Domain. I don't know what country that is. Some of the countries have specific domains, like for example.
And while you're looking it up, Brad, the other thing, as I'm on Bovada's website now, Bovada says Bovada is also a home to tons of casino games for you to play, including slots, blackjack, and roulette. Now, we also talked months ago, Brad, about the fact that I'm surprised that there hasn't been anybody in the legislature being lobbied by some iCasino group, because on a virtual casino, you can just go and there's a chick that actually, will run the roulette table who's dressed in a certain way and looks really nice. And then you can chat with her online and you could bet that's being filmed, let's say in Michigan, but you could place your bet here in Missouri and you could win a few dollars at the roulette table, chat up the chick who's running the roulette wheel, buy her a virtual drink, have some face-to-face interaction with her. And I'm surprised that iCasino hasn't been a bigger target of lobbyists here in Missouri.
.lv is Latvia.
Oh, nice. So, Brad, if you want to set up an account in Latvia, I don't know what their currency is. It might be Latka from Taxi, for all I know. But, Brad, maybe you could put a few bucks on a sports game.
Yeah, in Latvia. So,
that's between you and the IRS, I guess.
Okay, it was introduced on 29th of April, 1993, 2 years after the country's independence. So, Latvia became an independent country in 1993. Okay, John, it's been a pleasure as always.
And I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow, Brad.
We'll be back at it again. And don't forget, we do this show live from 7 to 8 a.m. We appreciate all the people that go listen to the podcast after hours or listen to it on YouTube. And John actually gave me an off-the-air compliment, which I will be very proud of, the fact that I've done some different stuff with the audio since John was gone last week. And John gave it the JC seal of approval, right?
It's incredible. You did a great job, Brad. It's awesome.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?